Wapani alangwao deshinzi, niha dilna pawi, wak dimaminzi wichao. Non gaa elna pawi lakawit, wak yontili. I'm Morning Star, or First Light. You can also call me Sherry Huff. I'm a member of the Wolf Clan. I'm from Elnapawi Lakawit in Canada, Southwest Ontario. And I'm also from here, from this homeland. In the background, you can see the city of New York, the island of Manhattan, right across the water. I'm standing on the shores of the Hudson River. This used to be our homeland, where our people come from. But when I grew up, I didn't know this. There was a disconnection between the stories told by my grandparents, their grandparents, for many generations about our connection to this place. We were pushed out of our homeland by various waves of settlers, starting in the 1600s. We were pushed as far as Canada to try and live our lives. We made more than 30 different communities between here and Canada over 200 years as we tried to search for a safe place to call home and raise our families. When I think about disconnection, I think about disconnecting from this place, our homeland. A few years ago, our community came back here. Many of us had never been here before. As soon as we stepped foot on the island, many people just felt familiarity. There was something about this place that was familiar, and many talked about that we were walking on the bones of our ancestors, below many, many, many layers of pavement and pipes and tubes. Our people lived in this place for thousands of years. We lived here, many of us, for generations without a trace. This was a metropolis then. It is now, as you can see. But it's very challenging to see what it once was. There was a balance when we lived here. And I think that we need to reconnect with that part of who we are, our connection with creation, to restore that balance today. My son once said, when he looked at a tree, he said, "Do you know, Mom, that tree has everything it needs from creation to survive. It doesn't need any more than it has. It doesn't take away from anything else around it." And I think that there's a lesson in that. I'm so proud of my son for hearing that lesson and sharing it with me. I think all of us could learn that lesson again and perhaps live more in balance with creation, because we see what's happening to our planet with climate change, with all of the forces of nature that are out of whack, out of balance. When I think about the island of Manhattan, something else was a huge connection for me to this place. That's our word. In Lenape, Mannahatta, it translates loosely to where we gathered wood for our bows, or where the hickories grow. I thought it was ironic because this word, Manhattan, is spoken by people around the world. Our word, our language is spoken by people around the world. Yet in our community, we have less than a handful of speakers. We have one first speaker left. This is one impact of colonization that hits right here. But I can tell you that we're reconnecting with our language. We're working to relearn the language, working with our speakers to try and regain that worldview that we got from our language. This relearning of our language is part of our decolonizing. When you think about decolonizing, it's an unlearning of what you've been told, the lies from colonization, that some people are better than others, that some deserve more than others. Colonization is a lie. Learning more about this place and all the people that came through here is a learning that we're going through. We've connected recently with members of the Dutch community. And some of the things that our elders have told us is that some of our people, back when the Dutch first arrived here in the 1600s, some of our people were actually taken on ships away from this place. We've been told that they may have been turned into slaves, perhaps back in the Netherlands, perhaps in other colonies. We hope to find out as we go through this great learning, relearning about our history and our connection with the Dutch. Could there be descendants of Lenape living today in the Netherlands? We don't know, but we would like to try and find out. This is what decolonization looks like. It's happening right now. As I stand here on the shores of the Hudson River in our homeland, where my ancestors come from, it's a completely different environment. The loudness, the hum, the buzz, the planes, the helicopters, relentless. But you also hear signs of nature. A hawk just sang. We hear birds and geese, and there is fish in the water. I believe that we can restore the balance to this place, work together with the people of this place now, and try to decolonize all of us so that we can try to restore that balance in our world. Nishik.
Well, my name is Denise, Bright Dove Ashton Dunkley. I'm Nanticoke Lenape from Bridgeton, New Jersey. Born and raised here, and I moved over to Delaware, which is another part of Lenape-Hoking, so I'm just right across the river over there. The water, for me, it's so important, and I think it's become more important throughout my lifetime because when I moved to Delaware, I actually moved along the Appoquinimink, which is a place we stayed for a long time in Lenape. It's what I see when I go to sleep. It's what I see when I wake up, you know, and it's ceremonial to me and my family. We go down and we say our prayers to the water and just give back. And it really just creates solitude and just peace for me when I come home. So it's like I love this area that I'm from, but I have a little piece that's private just to me and with it at home, you know, and whenever I'm outside or doing whatever I'm doing. So I love that about the water, you know. It's just, and it's been so important for me also to have raised my kids near the water. They do water sports. They're out there, they're connected with it. And I'm proud to say that I think that has really pushed them to have such a respect for it and want to protect it as young adults. And so, yeah, I just love the water and everything that is given to us here. It's everything, you know, and its beauty. Mm-hmm. So this is the Koomohna River. It extends all the way up through Bridgeton and all the way down to the Delaware Bay, and it connects to the Delaware Bay. The times that I've been on this river, it's the most beautiful, serene place you could ever be. A lot of dips and curves, and you'll certainly feel when you reach the bay because the energy shifts and it gets much stronger. But it's a beautiful territory, and it's also been a way that our relatives from Delaware would communicate back and forth and travel up and down these rivers and, you know, trade and share families and maybe find new loved ones, you know, come to ceremonies, all those sorts of things. And it was just a great place to live and, you know, thrive within the setting, yeah, here. So as an artist, an Indigenous person, and a person with a background in Indigenous people's law, it's profound in so many ways because it's so multifaceted. It's so much more than the Dutch arrival here. It's political, right? It's about the environment. It's about the disruption of an entire people that exist here. It's about our relatives. It's about our past and our future and the life that we're living today. And it's just important that everybody understand the dynamic that happened and the, for lack of a better word, the tremors that are still a result of that contact 400 years ago. It's just important to have that voice and that presence to make sure you know, Lenape people are heard, and it's important for the Dutch to realize that, and understand people affected by their contact and encroachment on other lands, and the power that they hold and still have, and possibly come up with ideas about what they can do about that. You know, what does restitution look like? What do conversations look like? What, how do we better the earth based on, you know, our impact? Like, how do we, you know, rectify any situations that we may have caused? The biggest disconnect, I would say, is being a child and being surrounded with relatives and feeling restricted to voice who I am as a person. I used to have conversations with my brother a lot, and we used to chat about like who we are. And I would ask my grandma, like, you know, who are you? And she was like, you know, what are you talking about? Like, I know who I am. You know, my name is Ruth, right? And I would say, no, like, who are you? Like, if you were to put down like what you identify as on a paper, you know, what would you say? And she would say, I wouldn't say anything. I stayed to myself, you know. And then my brother comes home one day after like being with some cousins, and he was like, I finally found out the answer. We're Native. And I was like, that makes sense, you know, but we couldn't figure out like, why no one would say it. I was probably 8 years old. And so that's been a life journey for me to figure out that disconnect, why that disconnect happened, why my elders refrain from being proud of that. Growing up, having to pull that information out of them when I watch my peers and my classmates speak so freely about who they are. So I started as deficit and had a large learning curve. And then once I went out of the community school district and my dad put me into private, that was the shock, because I was surrounded by white children who had a lot of different ideas about who I was, where I came from, why I shouldn't be there, why I don't exist. School teachers, you know, pushing back on what they wanted me to learn. And it just, you know, exposed me to a whole world that denied, ignored, didn't want to accept our people here in this beautiful territory, a land that is ours. You know, we've been here since time immemorial. So that disconnect and learning to reconnect has been a life journey for me. To live near the water, to pray to the water, to connect with this land, to be engaged in community, to sit with elders, to pull more stories from them, to pull all my relatives in that were also at that deficit, to bring them in, you know, and shelter them from that outside world, and then give them tools to also be able to say, no, like, you know, we're not going to allow you to disconnect me from this space anymore. This is our space, and we're going to embrace it, and you guys are going to acknowledge the fact that we're still here.
Kwinganalomwa. Good to see you. Nidashinzi Pokapishas. Walk Pat Noah. Ni Nunjiaye Alnapawi Lakawit. I'm Pat Noah from Raventown, or Delaware First Nation. Dama Minzi Takwa. I'm a turtle clan, or a baby turtle. Ni Dulanape, walk Badawadami, walk Mohawk, walk Schwanik. I'm Lenape, Potawatomi, Mohawk, and a little bit of white, whatever that means. And I'm standing beside the Thames River, where my ancestors came with the missionaries, the German missionaries. I feel positive about being here because it's my ancestors that brought us here. Through all their trials, grief, whatever difficulties they had to go through coming from the homeland, wherever that was. Pennsylvania, New York State, New York City, New Jersey, Ohio. But it's my homeland's back there. I won't say bad words about the Dutch, but I'm not happy with them. We treated them well, I believe. My ancestors treated them well. But because of our values as Lenape people, we welcomed them and we helped take care of them because they traveled far. But the effects of what they brought and who they were, especially with their values, changed our course of history and brought me here. The biggest impact to me is loss of identity related to culture and language, besides relocation. It affects our self-esteem, our future, and impacts that difficult struggle to reclaim who we are. The disconnect to our culture and language affects our confidence, our ability to use our words or know our words, and we rely on books and one last speaker who then has students who try to teach us. I think the other impact, though, is that I can't relate as closely as I would like to my mother, the earth, because I don't know all the names to the plants or the trees or whatever, so it's far-reaching. Or even the fish that are in that river. I can know a general word, but sometimes I worry that the words we get are just, the meaning is anglicized or too English. And the people that could speak it are gone. And when I say the people that could speak it are elders or our relatives, so all my grandparents were fluent. And it bothers me that I can't, because colonization stopped them with boarding school or residential school, and so then they were scared to teach us because they didn't want us to have a bad life. The Lenape have had to do different things that probably goes against their character to survive. That includes affiliation or association with missionaries, government officials, other nations they probably never got along with. And to survive meant, how do we take care of ourselves and our families, let alone our communities? And the communities were all split up and forced to leave. So I think that they adopted Christianity without really wanting to, but were forced to, because they could have a life, so to speak, even though they had to live by the rules of the Moravian missionaries or to Christianity. Reconnection to me is meeting the Lenape or Delawares that are in these other places like Wisconsin, New Jersey, New York, Oklahoma. Connecting with them just as people, to share laughs, to talk, to eat together, to play games, I don't know, football, just to be with each other, to know that we have the same lineage, the same ancestors.